I am so undecided about Raul. I feel like there's like half the fan base that are like, oh, well, he's making lots of chances, he's doing well. And then the other half of the fan base are like, when are we going to accept that he's shit? Where do we stand? Because I can't work it out. But there was so many good moments yesterday. And then there was just some head in hand moments.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one. I said yesterday, I think it will just take one goal and I'll be like in love with him and obsessed with him. But at the moment, it's really frustrating. He's doing so much good in the middle of the park up until the final third. And then just in front of goal, he really just doesn't have it. So it's so frustrating because I love so much about what he does. But I'm sure we'll come on to this. I don't know whether he should start against Chelsea. I don't know whether he's done enough, if he can't put the ball in the back of the net, to play up front in our team.
No, I mean, he would suit the Chelsea game if he can't put the ball in the back of the net, considering their problems at the moment. He'd fit right in that game. I mean, that's the most Stonewall 0-0 I think that we've ever seen. Cam, I think Raul seems to be the biggest talking point out of this game, so we might as well dive right into it. You know, there were some brilliant moments. There was a lovely couple of moments of control in the first half, like the hold-up play. I think there was a couple of times he brought Robinson into the match fantastically. There was one where he kind of he controlled a header that he had absolutely no right to control. He then managed to get onto the second touch into the box. He's got us up the pitch. He's contributing to the team in so many ways. And yet, just the chances that he's getting, and he had two big ones. He had that first one in the first half where Andreas plays him through, and you know, he gets on target, which I guess is to be applauded, but it's also a relatively easy save from Johnston. Then there's the one in the second half. Bobby Decordova-Reid plays him through. And now I can't decide for that chance in the second half whether it's Raul at fault or whether Andreas should be busting more of a gut to get there.
I don't know. I mean, I like what Raul intends to bring to the team. Obviously, dropping deep into the midfield, as Mitro did so effortlessly. It's almost like it's a transition between him knowing how Silva wants him to approach games. And he's doing things relatively well, I have to admit. And as we've already touched on, just without being ruthless and clinical in front of the target, which is obviously his bread and butter as a striker. And if we're going to trust him as our leading number 9 until January, who knows, he's got to unearth his scoring, his hunger for scoring. There's no two ways about it, because we've got slim pickings anyway up front. I can't really pick a favourite between Vinny, Raul and Muniz. I'm not even going to entertain him in that conversation. But yeah, he got himself into some advantageous areas. He worked possession well. You just want him to be ruthless. You want him to just not look at the teammates around him when he's bearing down on goal. You don't want him to assist. That's not his primary duty. And as Liz rightly said, all he needs is a goal. All he needs is a goal. You know what? If he scored Vinny's goal last weekend, a striker's finish, just snaffling up a loose ball in the penalty area, I'm sure he would have stuck one away yesterday, without a doubt. His second opportunity in mind, I was basically in the away terrace. I was right down the front, and people were saying that it might have been a bit of a heavy ball through from BDR. I don't really agree with that. I still think it was played into a great area. The first touch was perfect, really, as a striker. You're not stunting the ball dead there. You're knocking it in front. Automatically, the defender's going with you, but you've got the edge on him anyway because he can't dive in. Penalty if he makes contact. I don't know what he's trying to do putting it across the 6-yard box like that in the penalty area like that. You've got to drill across target, and you've at least got to make the keeper work. And Andreas, I don't think there's anything he can really do there. He was expecting Jimenez to shoot there. You could tell he was. I mean, it fizzed across the target, and he thought, oh, shit, I'm supposed to be, at the back stick here trying to make something happen out of nothing. So, yeah, it's a strange one with Raul. You've got to remember, for 5.5 million quid, all right, it's fairly risk-free. We know that once he gets up and running, there is a definite striker in there that's capable of, I think, of bagging double figures. He's going to go through a purple patch.
Do you honestly think Raul can get double figures?
Mate, I'm trying to be the optimist here,
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that.
I've been given dogs abuse in the past for writing players off way before, their standing suggests they should be. I'm just trying to back his corner a little bit here, because you've got to remember it is a top striker. You know, he's just gone through a very, very difficult stage in his career. He needs to dig himself out of. And the only way he's going to do that is if he has the full support of everybody behind him as well. And yeah, touching on it again, all we need is that one goal. Liz said it. I totally agree with it. And that should catapult his season for us. And I'd have no qualms about him starting week in, week out. But when you've got a player like Vinny, whose record recently has been pretty decent as well, and also he's the guy that obviously at home last season scored the winner against Chelsea too, maybe a little bit of mind games in play there, start him. Yeah, maybe Raul needs a little spell on the bench where he's like, okay, maybe I'm not necessarily top dog at this club. Maybe he needs to reflect a little bit. Maybe he needs somebody to actually be really breathing down his neck like Vinny, who actually on his day can stick it away. So we'll just see what pans out in the next couple of games, and I expect some big changes against Norwich, of course, because why not?
Just going back to that chance that Raul had in the second half, do you feel like BDR could have looked to his left and played Pereira initially? Because if you watch the replay back, Raul was sticking his arm out. He's actually pointing towards Pereira, as if to say he's not in a position where if he took the ball on, he would have a better chance of scoring. If you look back at the clip, I do agree with him. But having received the ball, he's got to drill it into that corner, because at the worst, the keeper's going to parry it into Pereira's feet. But I just think he's just devoid of confidence, and I think that's where he was hoping that ball would go left and not in his direction. But I think to get that confidence, do you start him against Norwich?
I mean, I'm vibing with you, Avais, honestly. I mean, I think in that position where BDR was centrally and both centre halves were completely occupied by the runs being made out wide, I would have put my laces through that if I was BDR personally.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
There was a gap opening up just on the edge of the 18. You think, have a pop, son. Like, the defenders aren't bothered by you at the moment. They're watching the runs obviously being made away from you. I would have unleashed something there. Just speaking from obviously an offensive standpoint, but obviously they work so strictly and strenuously on these attacker scenarios. Yeah. He's always going to give it to somebody. I think playing it across his body opposed to out like he did with Jimenez was probably a bit of a harder option for him. It might have been easier for a defender to read, I think, because it's obviously going across a defender as well, not necessarily away. It was the right ball. They just need to do better, and that's all it is. We're not scoring enough, and we're not convincing enough in front of the target as a team.
It's like when you play Pro Evo on the PlayStation. When you're desperate for your striker to score, you always ping that ball to him no matter what. And I feel like that might be part of what we were doing there, where that's a great chance for him to score. As Liz is saying, get that goal changes his whole approach to playing, and more confidence for the players around him to get him the ball, get him goals. But I also feel like, did we start the right front three? Did we? I was surprised that Harry Wilson didn't start. A bit of dynamism against this Palace back four, getting Harry Wilson to cut in from the right, just like Willian on the left. I think that would have played some balls through into Raul, would have helped. Yeah. Scored that goal in pre-season with Robinson playing that ball from deep but along the ground. I feel like that's how we get Raul his goals.
Yeah, I would have started Wilson, and I thought Bobby Reid had a bit of an off game yesterday. He wasn't dreadful by any means, but he did. Like, he was making bad decisions at times and wasn't receiving balls very well. And I think this Palace team, like, Wilson doesn't have as much control as Bobby Reid, I think, but this Palace team wasn't effective enough that we needed a super controlled winger. So yeah, I would have definitely started Wilson.
See, I thought BDR was okay. I think the front three as it was fine. Just to go back to the big chance, the one where Raul squared it. I just think, Liz, there's no way Mitro's doing either of these two things. There's no way that Mitro is pointing and going, no, give it to Andreas. Absolutely no way. And there's no way if he gets in that situation that he's not going for the bottom corner. I want my strikers to be slightly selfish. That I don't want my centre midfielder or my number 10. I want my number 10 to have some vision. You know, I always love that Tom Kearney doesn't shoot. He looks for the pass. And 9 times out of 10 it works. I want my number 10 not to be selfish and to have some vision. I want my striker to go for the bottom corner. And I would forgive him for missing. I would have forgiven him much more. And look, I see what he's trying to do there. I get it. Probably on the status of probability, squaring it there probably made sense. But I just think a striker just needs to shoot sometimes. And maybe that's a little bit like no tippy-tappy football, old school Sam Allardyce kind of thinking. But just sometimes it's true.
No, that's completely true. That is a striker's primary objective. That is what they're paid to do. They're paid to be ruthless. They're paid to get in those areas and put everything you've got through it. I don't like, you know what, assists are great, but you have got to get off the mark. You've got to break that duck somehow, and that was a prime opportunity for him to do it. And there's no two ways about it. We're all there going, shoot for fuck's sake. Just shoot. Just you use your life. Do exactly what you're out there to do. You're not a playmaker. You're supposed to be a target man, a hit man. That's the only way. The only possible way he's going to get off the mark is if it actually does something about it. It's not hard to understand as a striker, as a player. It's just frustrating to see because he's just so desperate to score as well. It struck me as a man yesterday that just panicked in front of the target, like, oh Christ, I'm actually here. I'm actually in a position where I'm supposed to be. He just needs to calm down in that moment. Is both opportunities he had yesterday. If he had, a split second more just to make his mind up and just to think about the scenario he was in, he would have stuck both of them away, I'm sure.
I feel for him so much, especially considering he's following someone who was so talismanic for us. I can't imagine how hard that would be. Like, for all of my criticisms of Mitrovic as a player, not loads, to be honest, but he was an incredibly instinctive striker. And Raul doesn't have that. And we're used to having a guy up top who breathes to score. And I just don't feel that with him. Like, I feel for him so much.